Hey guys, McLean here again. We're going to be learning about a couple things again. We're going to be learning all about two-dimensional arrays, and I'm going to teach you guys a new type, new data type that is in C Sharp. So I got some code here. Obviously, you guys probably have no clue what it means, so I'm just going to kind of go through it here. So in the last video, we talked about creating just a normal one-dimensional array, and we did that simply by just doing, you typed int, and then you had your two brackets, and that was what made it a array, and you would have a name, and then you would just set an equal sign, you'd do a bracket, and you would type all the values you want to store in there. And you can do this for any type. You can do it for an int, you can do it for strings, whatever. And a comma delineates a spot or a single element was what we learned. And so now I'm going to teach you guys about two-dimensional arrays. You'll notice here this is the full implementation of a two-dimensional array. The difference is obviously this comma is here. Essentially what that does is that allows you to, that's what makes it two-dimensional. So a two-dimensional array is going to have a row and a column number versus just a single number up here, like you just access an element or one spot, spot 0, spot 1. Here you got to access you got to tell it what row you want to access. So that's in this, like if you were accessing this, if you wanted to access row 0, spot 0, you would put int 0, 0. And if you were to print out int spot 0, comma 0 of storage, this would you would print out 23 because this is row, just like all the elements in arrays are 0 based. We see here that this is row 0, and then we have spot 0, spot 1, spot 2, row spot 0 is 5, row 1 spot 1 is 6, row 1 spot 2 is 4, and then row 2 spot 0 is 3, row 2 spot 1 is 4, row 2 spot 2 is 7. So with all that in mind, I'm going to remove these because that's not how you do that. And then I already have it set up to write out storage spot 1 comma 2. So what is 1 comma 2? That's column, or not column, that's row 1 column 2. So we know it's 0 base, so we're going to count it here. So this is 0, 1, and then 5 is in spot 0 on that row. So then 6 is 1 and 4 is 2. So this line here, this should print out 4. Okay, and then you'll see here that I have this right line statement. I had to put the money sign here because I'm printing something, but this is something you guys haven't seen before, storage.length. That I've used that on a string. You guys have seen that before, and that just returns the number of characters in that string. But what does it do on a two-dimensional array? Well, you'll find out that, and we'll let's just go ahead and go right to the printout. Let's see what this does. So we're just going to read these two first lines here. I'm going to actually just comment all this out. Okay. So let's just go see what this does. MCS. It's assigned but never used, no big deal there, and mono. So we got 4, and then it says there are 9 elements in the array. So we expected the 4, that was what was stored in this spot right here. That's what was stored in this spot. Row 1, column 2. 4 was there. So that's what this did. This printed out 4. And then this turned it into, this printed out, there was a 9 here, where this is. There are 9 elements in the array. So storage.length, simply put, returns the number of elements in your two-dimensional array. Or a one-dimensional array, you could do the same thing. So it said, okay, well, there's an element here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this would be 9. So that's all it does. It counts. It's nice if you have a use for that. And but we're going to keep moving forward here. So then you'll see I have a string here that I made. I just declared it foo, and foo is this. What do you think this does? This is a built-in function for strings. This is foo.toChar_array. What this is going to do is it's going to turn this string into an array of characters. So what it's going to do is automatically it'll assign every letter and every space to a single spot. So spot 0 is going to contain C. H, spot 2 will contain E, and so on and so forth. The space will be included in there, so this white space will be in spot. It would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this white space will be in spot foo bracket 5 end bracket. So you'll see here that I have a right line on foo spot 1. So let's see what that does here, just to kind of confirm. So we are expecting a H, I believe. Yes, we should be expecting an H to print out. So I redid that. Ignore that. I recompiled it here. 4, there are 9 elements, and it printed out an H. So we were correct here. So this toChar_array is a built-in function. It can be nice if you're trying to remove, if you're looking for a specific letter in a string that you read in from the user, or if you're trying to remove if you're trying to remove a word, you could do it this way, although that's not very efficient. So then you'll see here I turned it back to a string. So that's another thing you can do. You can take a char array and turn it into a string. You can also do this with int arrays. So I could turn this int goo into a string, like if I wanted to here. So let's do that. Let's actually, instead of writing foo to string, let's just turn it goo to string, and we're going to write it out here. Okay, so I'll comment that out, and let's see what this does. No errors. Mono H system int 32. What did that do? That doesn't make sense, because all it should have done is turned it into a string, according to what this function is supposed to do. But that's not always the case. System.int32, that's the underlying structure of what a integer is. So this is like a 32-bit integer is essentially what we converted to a string, and then when it wrote it out, it was like, well, I can't just write out a bunch of numbers as a as a string. Like, that's not a valid thing with this compiler. So all it returned was the all it returned was the background information, essentially, on that int array. But you can do this. This will actually work. Kind of tricked you guys. This will work for an actual string or a char array. So then print it out. Check this out. We can see. So print out that H, which was foo spot 1, and then I turned it back into a string, and I printed out all of foo. Okay, so now we're going to move on to this new type. You guys haven't seen this before. This is type decimal, and decimal is essentially a more accurate double, and I'm going to show you guys that just by this little thing I got going here. So you'll see I have a decimal named moo, and it's equal to 12.234 blah blah blah, and then this m. What the m does is if I was to print this out without the m, if I tried to run this, so you guys can see, actually, just to explain this has the same number of decimals after the point here. So these are the same numbers, essentially. Got to delete that 1, but yes, these are the same numbers now. And so they're equally long, and what I'm going to do is just print them both out. So I removed that M, we get a whole bunch of weird errors. The first error is because I have this in here, but let's retry it now. This error, literal of type double cannot implicitly be converted to type decimal. Add suffix M to create a literal of this type. So a decimal is, you know, this can't be, you have to put an M there to make it a literal, and essentially for it to work the way that we want it to work here. So let's try it now. One warning, that's not a big deal. Interesting. So I wrote both of these out. I wrote out decimal, which is this line after check this out right here. And you'll see that it printed out a lot more of the numbers in there than it did for double. And why is that? That's because typed decimal was made so that you could do financial transactions in a program, essentially. So it's much more precise. That's why it has a lot more, that's why it has 4 more digits printed than type double does. So that's what type decimal is supposed to do. It's more accurate, essentially, and that's why it printed out more of those digits when you write it out versus type double. So that was just a little something, you know, that can be useful for a lot of things. If you're, you know, if it's a matter of rounding is a big deal to you, for if you have to be exact, you would want to use type decimal, and there's a lot of uses for that. So I'm going to be logging off now. Our next video is going to be on if and else statements, do and while loops, and so this is the next video is a big one. Stay tuned. Thanks, guys.